Hi, my name is Parag. So today we'll go over some examples, coaching examples, right? Situations, basically, that I might have handled in past, or I learned during my coaching, training, etc. Just so that get idea about different kind of situations where people come to coaches for help, right? And bear in mind that this all my videos are like unscripted, and it's just the things that come to my mind at that moment. So you may or may not find flow to the video, but that's okay. I just wanted to be real. Okay. So what we can do is we can go through various categories that I handle and then just take few examples. Of course, there are lots and lots and lots of examples that one can come up with, but let's just limit it to few. Right? Now, if you're talking about life coaching, and it could be, any kind of scenario where you're feeling stuck, are lost in life and don't know what to do, don't even understand, why you're stuck there, forget about even, moving from that state. Or it could also be that, it's not that you're like somehow broke or in that disconnected situation or lost situation, but you know where you want to go next, but you're not able to make that change, right? So let's take one example is, and I'll take some examples from my life as well, right? That you know because of the way I was raised, or the situation at home and surroundings, and our financial conditions, and all the stuff. Um, I grew up with always um, in a fear of other shoe falling, kind of. There is always a fear of something bad happening, and it's not a good mental state to be in. When you're always thinking about the worst case scenario, and you're playing those scenarios in your mind again and again, and you're not able to be present, you're not able to enjoy the current moment, right? So that's one of very common scenarios that people need help with. And other thing is, for our age, right, we have like teenage kids, and then they don't listen to us, and we think that, oh, now they're grown up, and why can't they think this way? And this not only applies to kids, but also to your spouse, or maybe your friends as well, that you think that why don't they understand simple things, and why don't they really behave in this manner? This is the way things should be. And what it is doing, it's affecting you on a day-to-day basis. You're constantly thinking about that, right? That's the scenario. Another is, it's not really re- coaching related, but it's more of, life coaching related itself, because, same thing had happened with your, somebody in your team, or somebody from different team that you're working with, or, your manager, or, if you are a manager, somebody in your team that, it's difficult to work with them, and then maybe you're thinking that they're not pulling their work, right? They're not doing their job correctly. And what happens is it impacts you. You keep thinking about that interaction with them again and again and again. And it's like, playing it on a loop, and then you are losing peace of your mind over that, right? So how do you handle this situation? That's when, coach can help you with. Um, Same thing with, similar category, like rumination, where you say boss sent you some email, you respond them back, and then you immediately think, oh, shit, I did some mistake, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have, you know, written this instead of this. I don't know what he's going to think and whatnot. And then you're playing that scenario over and over again in your mind, and just think about it. If you did this on Friday evening and your whole weekend is ruined because of this. It could be with your boss or with, any of your colleagues, right? And, you either said something to them or wrote something in email, and then, whole weekend, your whole weekend is gone thinking about it, right? How do you handle this kind of scenarios? First of all, not to have this kind of things, and if you do, how do you overcome that, right? Um, and then, let's just take some career coaching scenarios, right? Like say, if you're putting in hard work and then you are not getting promotion and you don't know why that is, right? How do you really, how do you really uh, start on the right foot there? Like, where do you start? Because it's not, most people think, okay, they do hard work and then PMP cycle comes and they expect promotion and it doesn't happen. But you have to start like year or 2 years early into that, and there are strategies to, make it happen. Right. So, being an engineering manager, uh, and then also being somebody who was not an engineering manager before, as an individual contributor, and how I got promotions, and everything, right? So, there are strategies there. Then other things like if we are talking about leadership coaching, right? Then basically, how do you handle difficult conversations with with your team, right? Um, or any kind of communication. It's just not with your team, but even with your other colleagues in other teams, your manager, everything. How do you have effective one-on-ones with your team? How do you have effective one-on-ones with your manager? Um, and then how do you, engineering manager job is like really tough, and I get it, especially in the Silicon Valley. In the Bay Area, it's really, really tough job. There are a lot of expectations. You are wearing a lot of hats. How do you keep yourself sane after this and not get burnt out? Like, how do you draw boundaries? How do you do the same thing for your team? How do you coach your team as their leader, right? How do you adapt to different leadership styles? Because everyone has, one natural leadership style that suits their personality. But there are scenarios where you need to adapt to different leadership styles. So how do you do that, right? Again, say coming back to you know life coaching, right? There are a lot of things that a lot of assumptions that we have about this should be that way, that should be that way. The situation, it's hard for us to accept current situation, and many people don't realize it. That what is you know is there, and then say if it is raining, it is raining. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, that's a fact, right? But then how do you really respond to that? That's important, that situation, right? Um, Same thing with, say, if somebody comes and hits your car, you could argue, yeah, they shouldn't have, and it was my right of the way, but they did. There's nothing you can do about it. How do you handle that situation, right? Without you losing your mind over it, not only in that situation, but also over and over and over and again and again and again, just going through that situation, right? Those kind of things. Um, then there are other things about wanting to control other people. Many people don't really realize that you just can't control other people, including your children. But it's about changing your mindset to look at that situation from a different perspective. Also, in general in communication, right? The block is that we think word or we view the world from our perspective only. And in a lot of cases, it's we are not able to pause and even be curious about how the world would look like from somebody else's perspective. So having that awareness is very important, right? Again, like reacting versus responding, because most of us are not good at listening. And when you are having conversation, we are already thinking about the response in our mind while that other person is talking based on our bias or something that had happened a little bit earlier, and then with some assumptions and bias we are already forming that response and we're not even listening to the person, right? And then we end up reacting instead of pausing, thinking, and then responding, because we make it about us. we it's very difficult to separate out the intent versus the impact that conversation is having on you. Same thing, when we are telling something to somebody, whatever our intent may be, if we are able to think about the impact that conversation may have on somebody else, we will be a little careful about that conversation, right? um, Many of the conflicts which come either in your personal life or in your professional life, um, we are always, or most of the time playing that blame game, right? But we hardly ever think about our contribution to that situation. We always think that, oh, I did everything right, and that other person, they did wrong. They should not have done this, right? But we hardly ever stop and think about what I might have contributed to this situation, right? So there are a lot of these kind of things. These are like, these are little things, the little tricks that if you can do in your life will become better. You'll be better at handling a lot of situations in your career, because our careers, especially in the tech industry, are very high stress careers. There are a lot of high stress situations, and uh, like everybody's trying to do their best, but we still end up in situation where a lot of conflicts which arise, right? And there are a lot of things that we try to make it about ourselves there. We try to make a lot of judgment about others. We try to make a lot of judgment about ourselves, and that kind of thought process is the main reason um, for our suffering, and a lot of people don't realize it. So there are very simple techniques to be mindful about these things, learn to be mindful about these things, and then over the period practice to handle these things better. And I'm not saying that you will be in a balanced state all the time. You won't be. I am not as well. It's about, it's not about that. If you're thinking about being in a balanced state all the time, that's not something we can achieve. We are human, and we are going to lose balance. The important thing is realizing that you are losing a balance, and then having tools and techniques to come back in balance. That's the most important thing. And since most people are not even aware of what is really happening, that's where they don't even realize when they are losing a balance. And that's where coaches can really help you with. So people typically come with one small situation, but it is never about that particular situation. It is because you will see those patterns repeated in many places in their personal and professional life, and there is something core that needs to be um, changed there. And coaches are able to kind of, using this one situation, kind of, get into more details, then ask about another situation, and then get into a little bit more details to get clarity on where exactly the block is. Yeah. So that's the value that coaches bring in. It's a really if you have never experienced it, you should experience it. It's a very powerful and eye-opening conversation there. Um, and uh, I think you'll once you experience it, you will enjoy it. Because as I mentioned in earlier videos, your friends, your family, they won't be able to challenge you the way coaches can challenge, and the way coaches can be very objective and non-judgmental. In fact, there are some coaching sessions where I observed or I conducted. I didn't even have to get to any solution or anything. It was more of, as client is talking, and I was in an active listening mode where just listening. Client themselves, they start realizing things, and then they start coming up with the solution on their own. And that is very powerful. And why that is important, because in today's world what happens is everybody is just trying to advise, thinking that they are helping other person. Their intent is good, but they don't really realize that just by advising, they are basically bringing in their biases and opinions and based on their experience, but it may or may not help in this particular situation for that particular person, right? And um, sometimes people just want to be listened to, and coaches are really good at it. So that is also one good use case, I would say. That sometimes people, and other thing is also, right, in this busy world we are not able to take time to sit with us and with our thoughts, and just reflect those thoughts with or bounce those to someone, and then hear those back and realize what where the where the block is, right? So even that helps, because if you're having a coaching session, you have kind of kept aside those 30, 45, 60 minutes to be with your thoughts. And the coach is there to more of, guide through that, through that process, right? So that itself is very helpful. So I hope, I have generated some curiosity in you people about coaching, and you'd want to give it a try. Um, you can find details on how to reach me in the description of this video, and I would like to help you. So hopefully, uh, let's talk soon. Thank you.